From Eyewitness News, this is breaking news.
To those who wreaked havoc in our capital today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house. And as we reconvene in this chamber, the world will again witness the resilience and strength of our democracy.
Vice President Mike Pence with strong words tonight after a chaotic, violent, and historic day in our nation's capital. The Senate now back inside the chambers tonight as lawmakers resume debate on the Electoral College tally.
It is something not seen before in the past 50 years, the U.S. Capitol building coming under siege by political protesters. During all the chaos on the Hill, a woman was shot and killed. And lay word tonight, 3 more people died from medical emergencies that occurred during the violence. In our next piece of video, you'll hear the gunshot ring out from that deadly shooting, but we will not show the graphic conclusion.
Get down. That sounds like a gunshot.
Tonight, D.C. officials will not say who that woman is or whether she was shot by someone who breached the Capitol or by a police officer. Sources say it was law enforcement who shot the woman.
A lot of developments coming in right now, and Eyewitness News is bringing to you team coverage tonight.
We begin with national correspondent James Rosen. He's on Capitol Hill tonight and has more on what the president and president-elect had to say.
Madam Speaker and members of Congress.
Not long after Vice President Pence gavelled the joint session of Congress to order, opening the door to a challenge of the certification of the Electoral College vote by a minority of Republican lawmakers, chaos descended on the Capitol complex.
You've never seen this before. Now you're seeing that this is a policy. You see it. Not to face the statutes.
But the protesters did inflict some damage, roaming the hallowed halls seemingly at will, with even the office suite of Speaker Pelosi compromised.
They broke the glass. Everybody stay down. Get down.
As terrified spectators watched from the House gallery, Capitol Police drew their firearms close to the House floor. On the Senate side, protesters ran wild on the floor. One young man brazenly occupied the same chair Vice President Pence had an hour earlier when he presided over the Republicans' truncated challenge to the certification of the Electoral College vote.
And we'll stand in recess until...
Lawmakers in both chambers were evacuated.
Get down under your chairs if necessary so we have folks entering the rotunda.
In Wilmington, President-elect Biden called the violence at the Capitol a god-awful display, an assault on the rule of law, chaos unlike anything we've seen in modern times.
It borders on sedition. I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
Minutes later at the White House, President Trump released a video that repeated his baseless claim the election was stolen from him before imploring his supporters to stay peaceful and, quote, go home.
We love you. You're very special, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace.
By late Wednesday, a form of peace once again prevailed on the Capitol, but the place would never be the same, and many now await investigations into how this shocking breach could have occurred in the first place. On Capitol Hill, James Rosen.
And tonight, angry Democrats are relentless. We could be headed for another impeachment. A couple of hours ago, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar said she is drawing up those articles. She said we can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we need to fulfill our oath. If convicted in the Senate trial, the president would be removed and banned from holding public office. However, nothing will likely come of the Congresswoman's action. At the same time, there are several reports of members of the cabinet discussing using the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office. It is unclear how extensive those conversations have been or if Vice President Pence would support such a move. We do know that D.C.'s Attorney General Karl Racine is calling on Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump.
And Twitter throwing its political weight around tonight. Right now, President Trump's Twitter account remains locked. Twitter cited the violent situation in Washington as well as what they call severe violations of their civil integrity policy. It's demanding that the president remove 3 tweets, including the videotaped message where he's asking for calm. And if they are not removed, the account will remain locked. Twitter also threatened a permanent suspension of the president's account. To put into perspective just how historic the attack was on Capitol Hill, the last time the Capitol was breached this way was in 1812, more than 200 years ago. There have since been many incidents at the Capitol, however, since then. The Senate website says that British troops marched into Washington, burned down much of the city and the Capitol in the process, as well as the president's mansion at the time. Congress was forced to meet at a hotel until the new Capitol building was constructed. There have also been several bombings, though, and several shootings at the Capitol since then.
And again, a live look at the Capitol as a process which for more than 230 years has largely been ceremonial, resumed a few hours just ago under close watch. A short time ago, Senator James Lankford, a Republican from Oklahoma, vowed to work together with fellow members of Congress and acknowledge that Congress will certify President-elect Joe Biden's win sometime this evening. The Senate's vote to throw out Arizona's electoral votes already failed, and by a lot, and the House then followed suit. Just 6 senators voted to throw them out, including Ted Cruz, who helped raise the objection. 93 senators voted against it. The challenge was part of a larger effort to discredit the 2020 presidential election.
Lawmakers have been documenting the chaos on social media today. This is from Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley. He tweeted a picture showing the Electoral College ballots. He says that they were rescued from the Senate floor. Merkley says if our capable staff hadn't grabbed them, they could have been burned by the mob. And back here at home, local politicians reacting to what happened on Capitol Hill today.
Eyewitness News reporter Jeff Platt is outside right now. The Congressman's Kevin McCarthy's office in Bakersfield, he has their statements and the controversy surrounding a local state senator. Jeff?
Well, and even people here locally are posting. You see a letter right there on the door of the congressman's office. A woman drove all the way from Lancaster just to leave that. And at a time when everyone is posting their opinions in one form or another, all of our local politicians did the same.
I could not be sadder or more disappointed with the way our country looks at this very moment. People are getting hurt. Anyone involved in this, if you're hearing me, hear me very loud and clear. This is not the American way. This is not protected by the First Amendment. This must stop now.
Congressman-elect David Valadao sharing those sentiments, tweeting the behavior of these, quote, protesters on the Capitol complex is absolutely abhorrent. This is un-American. Sitting Representative T.J. Cox tweeted, "Today is a sad day for America. I pray for the safety of my colleagues and the people protecting everyone in the Capitol." Assemblyman Rudy Salas putting out a statement, "The violent and undemocratic events at our nation's capital are completely unacceptable. We need to come together as true Americans who believe in American democracy and the right to peaceful protests and elections." Assemblyman Vince Fong put a statement online saying, "While there is a right to peaceful protest and debate, this type of disruptive and violent behavior on display in D.C. is unacceptable. I am upset, angered, and saddened. We as Americans should be better examples of how to properly conduct ourselves in a representative democracy." Senator Shannon Grove tweeted from her professional account, "This is unacceptable. America guarantees the freedom of speech and to protest, but this is not the way to settle differences. Enough." However, on her personal Twitter account, the senator retweeted a post saying those breaking into Congress were not Trump supporters, but rather Antifa. She quickly deleted the post, replacing it with this one saying, "Patriots don't act like this. This is the way Antifa behaves. This behavior is unacceptable and un-American." And if you're wondering what the letter on the front door of the congressman's office here says, just in part, it says, "Mr. McCarthy, you are responsible for what happened in Washington today." And it goes on to say that that is because of the congressman's blind support for the president. Of course, it's going to continue to play out over days, and there will be more reactions, and we'll bring as many of them to you as possible. Live in Bakersfield, Jeff Platt, Eyewitness News.
All right, Jeff, thanks for that. Meanwhile, today, local supporters of the president gathered in several parts of Bakersfield, some of them even making their way to the elections office downtown. Elizabeth Christian was in the northwest part of town with more coverage.
Yeah, Dave, Rochelle. So a Trump rally was arranged here at Chuy's on Rosedale Highway, and now the group has made their way to the elections office, flying their flags. That was the whole goal of this flag wave. But I did get to catch up with one Trump supporter earlier who had a lot to say about this election as well as the protest happening in Washington, D.C.
The bulk of it was peaceful. I heard that there was one lady, unfortunately, that was shot and lost her life. I'm not sure what the situation is there, and it's really unfortunate. My thoughts and prayers go out to her and her family, but that is not our MO. The only time that you will see this get violent is if our corrupt politicians proceed. And, you know, we're going to be peaceful anywhere we go to rally to gain support and gain traction, more traction than what we have, and to bring attention to a lot of this.
Now, two events held in Bakersfield, one earlier today and one that is now making their way downtown, both peaceful though. So reporting live in downtown Bakersfield, Elizabeth Christian, back to you.
And while there's plenty of unrest in Washington, D.C. today, the president's supporters also held rallies across the country, from Los Angeles to Denver to Topeka and Lansing, Michigan. Some capitals had to shut down as protesters took over some areas.
A number of protesters staged a peaceful demonstration against President Trump in New York City tonight. They held banners and posters in Columbus Circle calling on the president to accept the results of November's presidential election.
Coming up on Eyewitness News here at 10, we will continue to cover the day's unrest at the nation's capital.
Plus a look at today's local headlines, including the latest in the search for two missing California City boys. New tonight at 10, the Kern County Sheriff's Office has arrested 11 people during a months-long undercover operation targeting child predators. Deputies posed as minors online and would set up a meeting location with the suspects to take part in lewd acts. Detectives would then arrest those who showed up. Deputies said they have noticed an increase in this type of activity since the start of the pandemic.
An update on a lawsuit against Governor Gavin Newsom. Restaurants were banding together to sue the governor, saying he didn't have authority to ban in-person dining. The lawsuit requested that the ban be put on hold. Tonight we're learning that a judge has now rejected that request. The judge ruled that the governor has not exceeded his authority for an emergency matter and has not failed to respond in an irrational manner. No word on what the next move might be.
And still ahead here on Fox 58 tonight, a sweep for Democrats in Georgia as they're projected to win both Senate runoff races. We'll explain what that all means coming up after this break.
Democrats landed a victory today that may have been overlooked with what's going on in Washington. Jon Ossoff was declared the winner of the second Senate runoff race in Georgia by less than 1%.
Yeah, that's a sweep for Democrats, which changes the landscape on Capitol Hill. Eyewitness News chief political correspondent Scott Thuman is in Georgia tonight to explain.
Well, word tonight that Jon Ossoff has indeed defeated incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue is resonating well beyond Georgia's borders, because what it means in conjunction with Raphael Warnock unseating Senator Kelly Loeffler overnight is that Democrats now have taken both races. They'll have 50 seats in the chamber, and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris would then serve to break any tie. That opens up an entirely new path for a Biden administration on how it wants to govern now that it has, albeit a slim majority in both the House and Senate. This also is seen as a major rejection of President Trump in a state that had been safe haven for Republicans for the past 20 years or so. And it's significant that two political outsiders, men who had never held public office, can upset two incumbent senators. And by the way, it also means that President Trump will be the first one since the Great Depression to lose both his re-election bid to the White House and also lose the House and Senate. In Savannah, Georgia, I'm Scott Thuman.
In Bakersfield, California, I'm Miles Musio, and we had a nice sunset just for a second there. Did you see the colors? Otherwise, we had some high clouds today, some A little bit of fog this morning, but not a lot. And tomorrow morning should be about the same, the way it's looking now. 46 degrees at this hour. We had a high of 57, a low of 39 degrees. And temperatures now, let's see, already down to 39 in Delano. That's a spot that's probably going to see some fog. The critical temperature tonight is 38 degrees. And once you hit that temperature or go lower, then fog is likely. You can see temperatures up in the mountains in the 30s and 40s. And here you can kind of see that fog. Earlier today, we had a lot of high clouds moving in over the top of it, but early here, there you can see a little area of fog right there. And then it cleared off by midday. 57 the high today, and right now it's 46 degrees, but cooler off to the north. And the lower visibility off to the north too, here 1¼ miles. So this is the way the fog tracker looks for tonight. So here we are at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can see most of the fog off to the north and west of Bakersfield. Then it kind of expands going into about the 7 o'clock time frame. And then after that, things will clear out, and we'll see another day tomorrow similar to what we saw today. Some high clouds out there. Nothing really going on. We do have a lot of moisture, which is high level, maybe some mid and high level moisture, some low pressure systems out here. But most of the low pressure is bringing rain to areas north of us, unfortunately. And we desperately need rain. Tomorrow, the weekly drought monitor will come out, and it'll probably still be a moderate drought, but we're going to be trending toward worse, like severe drought, before the end of this month. And here you can see by Friday evening there will be a cold front that'll come through, not bringing any rain. It'll bring with it some wind for the mountains, and that's about it. Fog late tonight, lows 34 to 39 in the South Valley. Some patchy dense fog tomorrow. So far we don't have a dense fog advisory, and most of it again will be to the north of us. Highs about like today in the upper 50s. 20s and 30s for lows tonight in the mountains with some high clouds, and highs tomorrow 57 to 60 degrees in the Kern River Valley. We're down into the 30s tonight, and highs into the 60s tomorrow. Pretty nice for January. And 30s for lows in the deserts, and highs in the 60s tomorrow, so not really too bad at all. Air quality is going to be in the moderate zone for the next 2 days, but as the little cold front goes by, a little bit more wind late Friday and Saturday, we may see a day where it gets better, up into the good range. And for tonight, high clouds, fog forming late tonight, low around 39 in Bakersfield. And tomorrow's high temperature, about 58 degrees, some patchy dense morning fog, mostly to the north and to the west. And then temperatures are going to be in the 50s, close to 60 for the next many days there. You'll notice by Tuesday and Wednesday, we actually get cooler, and this is all totally dependent on whether or not a big ridge of high pressure builds over us, which will be happening. 70% of the time we see fog form, 30% we don't, and this is assuming that we will see fog form. Otherwise, it'll be nice outside the valley. You can see temperatures in the 50s, but by the next week, we're up into the 60s. And check out the forecast for the Lake Isabella area. 60s for highs, but next week, beginning on Wednesday, 70 and even 74 degrees going into the end of next week. That's with a big ridge of high pressure. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more news right here on Fox 15. Back now with the latest on the pandemic here locally. 3 more people have died in Kern County from COVID-19. The death toll is now at 521. Just over 1,000 cases reported in the past 24 hours. The total case number now close to 74,000. More than 400 people are being treated in local hospitals. Meanwhile, the Public Health Department says it will begin its Tier 2 of Phase 1A of the COVID-19 vaccine schedule. These groups are now eligible to get the shot. Intermediate care facilities for people who need non-continuous nursing supervision and supportive care, home health care and in-home supportive services, community health workers, public health field staff, primary care clinics, including federally qualified health centers, rural health centers, correctional facility clinics, and urgent care clinics.
Now to a developing story we've been following for more than 2 weeks now. Tomorrow, the California City Council will meet to vote on an offering and a financial reward for the return of 2 missing toddlers. This reward will be on top of the $25,000 already offered from 3 local businesses. Council member Kelly Kulikoff says that the reward is to get more people involved in helping find Orrin and Orson West.
It is a community issue. The kids got missing in the community, and we have to come together to try to tackle this.
City Council will meet tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon. Eyewitness News will be there and update you on what is decided.
And coming up in our next half hour, we'll continue our coverage of today's incident at the Capitol and tonight's curfew in D.C.
And we're in the district where things are much quieter tonight. "10:30 tonight, and we continue our coverage at the chaos at the Capitol today. This is a live look at the Hill, where the House and Senate resumed the debate to certify that Joe Biden will be president 14 days from now.
This all comes after pro-Trump protesters forced their way into the Capitol earlier today. Police used tear gas as crowds overpowered them. D.C. police say the protesters used chemical spray to gain access. The building was quickly put on lockdown, protesters pouring in, and U.S. Capitol Police engaging in armed standoffs. And lawmakers were told to hide under their desks and in closets.
And some new video in just tonight shows that situation. As those crowds got inside the building, they face one officer who tries to keep them out, but he is clearly outnumbered. That crowd keeps moving in as that officer turns and runs several times. What was one of the most protected buildings in the world is once again secured, though, this evening.
Lauren Blanchard has been following what happened today. She has the very latest for us tonight.
Federal authorities are on high alert, actively working to make sure the area surrounding the U.S. Capitol is safe and secure from any more threats.
Everybody stay down!
Chilling images capture the scene inside the halls of Congress. Protesters managed to breach security barriers, storming into the Senate chamber and the offices of lawmakers. Some of them getting access to the Senate floor, coming face to face with lawmakers and law enforcement. Washington, D.C.'s mayor put a curfew in place, urging people to stay away.
The behavior that we are witnessing is shameful, unpatriotic, and above all, it is unlawful.
The size of the crowd outside appeared to overwhelm Capitol Police officers. Earlier in the day, on the National Mall, President Trump addressed his large crowd of supporters and asked them to march to the Capitol to peacefully protest the results of the 2020 election. Later, the president reacted to the violence.
We have to have peace. So go home.
The chaos interrupted Congress's certification of the 2020 election. Order was restored hours later, and late this evening, Congress met again to continue the process of tallying electoral votes. President-elect Biden called the violent standoff an act of insurrection.
America is so much better than what we've seen today.
Police say a woman who was shot during all of the chaos has died from her injuries. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
And right now, Washington, D.C., or at least the Capitol, is on lockdown after a citywide curfew was put in place earlier this evening. Heather Graff from our sister station is there, and people do seem to be abiding by that curfew.
A citywide curfew took effect here in the nation's capital at 6 o'clock this evening. And in the hours since, we have seen a much quieter scene than the chaos and the violence that we saw unfold earlier today. Take a look behind me and you will see the massive law enforcement presence. So in this crowd, we have the DC Police Department, Capitol Police, and we've also seen members of the National Guard out here as well. Starting at 6 p.m. when the curfew took effect, they began to expand the perimeter around the Capitol, slowly moving any remaining protesters back. And since about 7:30, they have been just holding this line here, a large perimeter of law enforcement officers now surrounding the Capitol. We're standing on the west side of the Capitol, and of course, we'll continue to monitor the situation here, but that is the very latest, as we said, at the end of a chaotic day in Washington, D.C. I'm Heather Graff. Back to you.
Former President George W. Bush has issued a statement condemning the violence inside the U.S. Capitol. He said, quote, "This is how election results are disputed in a banana republic, not our democratic republic. I'm appalled by the reckless behavior of some of the political leaders since the election and the lack of respect shown today for our institutions, our traditions, and our law enforcement."
I want to get a focus now on the task at hand for the Congress tonight. They are still at it, counting the electoral ballots. At this hour, some members of the House are objecting and debating the electoral vote from the state of Pennsylvania. We saw earlier tonight, before the violence broke out, the objection to the ballot total in Arizona. They've moved on to Pennsylvania now. That's what the debate is about. We'll keep a close eye on what's going on there. National correspondent Christine Frazao explains the important first step in moving past this day.
Good evening. A stunning turn of events here inside the U.S. Capitol. After sheltering in place and trying to hide from an angry mob, lawmakers this evening have returned to work. And some of those Republican senators who were outspoken about objecting to the results of the Electoral College have now changed their minds. After having their offices and their sense of security breached, this was the scene for lawmakers this evening. Senators back to work to continue to certify the Electoral College votes.
Now we're going to finish exactly what we started. We'll complete the process the right way, by the book, and we will certify the winner of the 2020 presidential election.
Many in Congress calling the riot a shameful assault on our democracy. Some Republican senators who had planned to object changing their vote.
And I cannot now in good conscience object to the certification of these electors.
And we're headed towards tonight, towards the certification of Joe Biden to be the President of the United States.
President Trump in a tweet called his supporters, quote, great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Twitter later threatened to permanently suspend his account. Also tonight, a wave of resignations inside the Trump administration. That includes Stephanie Grisham, the chief of staff for First Lady Melania Trump. On Capitol Hill, I'm Christine Frazao.
And we will continue to follow the developments from Capitol Hill. You can always stay up to date on bakersfieldnow.com, our social media platforms as well, and in the free Bakersfield Now news app. And we're back with some more local headlines, including the vaccination of some of our local first responders.
An update now on the second round of stimulus payments. Some of you have already seen a $600 check in your bank account. The funds officially became available on Monday. The payments will continue to be sent out through January 15th. The IRS says that anyone eligible who isn't automatically sent that money by then will have to claim it on their 2020 tax return. Checks or new debit cards will be sent to those who don't already have a bank account on file with the IRS. Those checks started going out last week.
Now to the pandemic, and while more vaccines are rolling out for our local healthcare workers, officials from Dignity Health say we're not out of the woods just yet. Mercy Hospital's president Bruce Peters says hospital beds at both Bakersfield Mercy locations are filling up fast following the Christmas holiday.
Our ICUs are full at both campuses. We've exceeded our ICU capacity at both campuses, so we're holding patients, some who are on ventilators in our post-anesthesia care units at each location. So we saw a spike immediately on Tuesday and again today.
Officials from Dignity Health added that 50% of employees at Memorial Hospital are already vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine and have reported little to no negative reactions to it. They said they will start the second round of doses come tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Bakersfield Fire Department posted that they have started to receive their first rounds of the COVID vaccinations. Their members started to receive their first dose yesterday. The department said that they have teamed up with the Auburn Pharmacy, that's in East Bakersfield, to deliver these first rounds.
Still to come on Eyewitness News here at 10. We'll wrap up our coverage of the chaos at the Capitol today. Take a look at some of the most powerful images when we get back.
Some stunning images are coming from the nation's capital during today's siege.
National correspondent Atra Al-Nashar has a closer look at some of the violent images coming out of a dark day for our democracy.
We're supposed to protect our country, support our country.
Now ominous words from the president delivered in front of a crowd of protesters Wednesday afternoon. Around 2 p.m. local time, many of them starting to make their way to the U.S. Capitol, where lawmakers began the process to certify the Electoral College vote. Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford seen here being told the news.
Protesters are in the building.
The House floor breached not once, but twice.
I called my wife,
let her know I was okay right now.
Democratic Congressman Dan Kildee of Michigan was in the room and describes the frightening moments to Sinclair.
And our Capitol Police drew their weapons. I heard a series of pops. I don't know if that was them hitting the glass because they were attempting to break the glass, or if it was tear gas, or if there was actual gunfire.
Rioters breaking into offices.
It was a sad, sad day for our republic, and they were criminal acts.
Republican Congressman Steve Stivers of Ohio.
The last time the U.S. Capitol was breached was in 1814 by British soldiers, and we were at war.
This video showing the moments after a woman was shot.
We gotta get EMS here!
Outside, police overwhelmed by rioters, using tear gas, calling in reinforcement from nearby Maryland and Virginia. We're getting more information about the woman who was shot inside the Capitol during the breach. Local law enforcement tells us she was taken to a local hospital where she later died. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrell Mashar.
Well, let's talk about the weather instead, and it was pretty nice today. We had the sun going down, and then the clouds cleared just long enough so that we could have a nice little sunset, and you barely saw it there. This is a pretty fast time lapse right here, and it was pretty nice this morning outside the valley. We did have some fog in the valley. Right now it is 46 outside. Our high today, 57, low of 39. Let's compare that to the normal. Normal is 55, and the normal low is 39. Pretty close, wouldn't you say? And it's been down to 16 degrees on this day, way back in the 1930s. Here you can see some clouds coming in. These are, that's the way it's been. We've had high clouds just coming in just all week long, it seems, and it looks like we're going to see more of those high clouds and the potential for some patchy, dense fog. But the operative word here is patchy. That means it's not going to be quite as widespread as had been thought. Of course, sometimes fog throws you a curveball, and maybe it will be. We're going to be seeing the drought deepen. No rain is expected for at least the next 2 weeks, and we are now coming into the big part of the rainy season where we're supposed to see plenty of precipitation. But this January, it looks like that's not going to be the case. It'll be a dry January. So 46 right now outside. Let's check the humidity. Okay, 76%. That's the spirit. And up here, we've got 96% humidity in the Hanford area, with visibility beginning to go down there just a little bit. So the high clouds are moving through here. The rest of the nation, we have had some thunderstorms in the southern Mississippi Valley, and then also down here in East Texas, in fact. Here you can see some of those showers and thunderstorms. A little bit of light snow up in parts of Nebraska and Iowa. And right now, not too much going on. We do have fog in parts of the Dakotas, but temperatures really not that bad considering it's early January. 24 degrees in Minneapolis is not that big of a deal this time of the year. Down to the south, once again, we did have those big thunderstorms move through the Houston area. Here's kind of a line moving on through. You can see some heavier showers up through northern portions of Louisiana. All right, for us, it's going to be a little low-pressure system right here. It's going to fly on through. It's pretty far to the north. All it'll do is give us some wind, and then high pressure builds in after that. And next week, we're talking about an expansion of the high pressure. It comes. Presto, I'm doing an act right there. Magic. It's going to be high pressure all over, and that's going to probably mean some significant fog here in the valley. But outside the valley, it'll be just delightful. It'll be like springtime. 30s tonight, not like springtime in Delano and Wasco. Tomorrow, we're up to around 53 to 57 degrees, so similar to what we were today. And then on Friday, lows about the same, 30s for lows, highs getting up of 54 in the foggy spots here, but a little bit warmer here in Bakersfield, up to about 60 degrees. So here's what we got. Temperatures plus or minus a few degrees from 60 for the next several days with some morning fog. One of those days could be a little bit of a surprise with more fog than not. And then as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm thinking right now we'll probably see fog, and that'll keep the temperature down. But if we don't have a lot of fog, then temperatures will actually be up. So it's a pretty tough forecast for next week. But no rain. That I can tell you. We're going to be looking at 50s in the mountains, 30s for lows, windy on Friday, and then looking pretty good next week, getting up into the 60s. And in the Kern River Valley, 60s to begin with, and a nice weekend all in all, and then 70s beginning on Wednesday and going into most of next week. We'll be back with sports coming up.
Now Eyewitness News Sports with Greg Kerr.
And a good Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Once again, sports and politics intersecting on this day as the nation's capital was breached, resulting in chaos violence and 4 people dead, 1 by gunshot. Reaction tonight from around the NBA.
There wasn't really time when we were all here together to sit and talk, so we just scrapped warm-ups and sat in the locker room and talked. And to be honest, at 30 minutes, I didn't think we were playing.
Crazy, almost like a movie when I see it, talking to people, and obviously now being in DC and my family there, it definitely hits a little different for me now.
It's America's capital. Should not be able to do what I saw on video. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. And it should never happen.
It's a sad day in a lot of ways. It's not good for our country. More across the borders that people see this, but it's part of what we are, and so we have to solve it.
Tonight's games met with teams making a statement. This is Toronto and Phoenix, unified arm in arm before the game. In Miami, the Heat and the Celtics taking a knee before their game tonight. And the same scene where the Clippers and Warriors were meeting here on the West Coast. And in Milwaukee, the Bucks and the Pistons each taking a knee before their first possession of the game. Meanwhile, on the floor, the action, back to the Wizards and 76ers. Bradley Beal with a night to remember. 20 of 25 from the field, 1 corner 3, then another for Beal. It was also 7 of 10 from three-point range, 13 of 15 from the foul line, matching a franchise record, by the way, with 60 points. And it wasn't enough as the Wizards lose to the Sixers 141-136. Celtics and Heat. Miami wiped out a 10-point lead, so game tied, final seconds. Celtics ball. They will get it to the hoop. And off the miss, the rookie Peyton Pritchard, of all people, the tip in. And the Celtics go on to win this one by a final of 107-105. Magic and Cavs, and former top pick Markelle Fultz going down on this play. His knee would buckle, resulting in a torn ACL. Fultz will miss the rest of the season. Fultz, who didn't pan out in Philadelphia as the top pick of the 2017 draft, just signed a 3-year, $50 million deal last month with the Magic. Well, the odds against his team, Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said it is, quote, full steam ahead, end quote. Interesting choice of words on a day where 2 of his players were cited for drag racing. True story. Stefanski is prepping his team for Sunday's wildcard game against Pittsburgh. He will not be there, having tested positive for the coronavirus. That, he says, should not be a major concern.
It really doesn't matter who's the head coach on Sunday. They know how we play. They know what our identity is. Coach Preef will be the guy on Sunday. I have a ton of confidence in them. I know they do as well. He's a voice that they hear every day. I mean, every single day Coach Preef has special teams going. So I think they have a great amount of trust in him, as well as do I.
All right, over in the NFC, meanwhile, the Rams and Seahawks are going to do it again. A third meeting between the 2 NFC West rivals. Rams All-Pro Aaron Donald sizing up the opportunity.
We won the first game. They got the best of us the second game. And, now it's like more like the tiebreaker. They got the division, and they was happy about that. Now they got to see us again for a third time. And, when you're playing a team that you play twice a year, you kind of got to feel for each other. They know what you're going to do. We know what they're going to do. It's pretty much man on man now. Best team going to win. So, you wouldn't want to know better way than that.
And a quick reminder, college football's national championship game next Monday night, Alabama and Ohio State. That's a wrap in sports. So we send it back to the news desk.
All right, Greg, thanks for that.
And thank you for joining us tonight here at 10 o'clock, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.